It is such a pleasure to spend some time today with Fred Harlan. He knows all too well the heartache and the seemingly endless, impossible journey of infertility. And Fred has not only been through it, but he's also a family and marriage therapist intern who specializes in helping men cope with infertility. So, Fred, it's so great to chat with you. Thank you for sharing your story with us today.
Hi, Julie. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Happy to. And I know your experience with infertility, along with your wife Andrea, lasted a very, very long 8 years. If you could take us through a little bit of that and explain that experience as well as some of the procedures that you tried.
Sure. Just to start off with, it was by far and away the most challenging experience in my life. And I'm sure Andrea would say the same thing. Didn't necessarily try consistently through those 8 year period of time. We did take some time off. I also like to say that life got in the way, but it still was overall concerted effort during those 8 plus, 8.5 years. And so we just, like most people, started on our own and realized we were having difficulties. So we sought out some medical help, and we had 3 IUI procedures that were unsuccessful. Then we were able to participate in a clinical trial for our first IVF, which we again were unsuccessful, and then we completed 4 additional IVFs that we were unsuccessful. Eventually, it was determined by the medical professionals that we were seeking help from that the issue was my wife's egg. Although we both had issues that we felt like they felt that was the primary issue.
Fred, that must have been so incredibly challenging on so many levels. And what amazes me is how positive that you and Andrea were able to stay and so hopeful in keeping your dream alive to have a child, even when family and friends and the doctors were saying you might have to consider other options. But I know that at some point you did have to make a difficult decision.
Yes, we did. We had eventually gone far enough on our infertility journey that we came to terms with that we were not going to be able to have a child using Andrea's egg and my sperm. And so at that point, we started thinking about other options. And our first feeling was that, and this came primarily from me, that the child would either be all of ours or neither of ours. So, meaning we were thinking of adoption at that point in time. And just as we continued to explore really all options, but we're definitely looking at adoption, we began to realize, and I began to realize, that still wanting to try a few options to have a child that might be biologically mine was something I wanted to do, and Andrea was supportive of that. And things just unfolded for us to find a donor, and the rest, of these, as they say, is history.
And you were able to, nearly 2 years ago, have a beautiful baby boy, Garrett. Congratulations to both of you.
Thank you. Yeah, he's just such a joy.
And I can't even imagine what that moment must have been like when he was born. Can you share a little bit about that?
Sure. First of all, my wife is such a trooper. She had him completely natural, which that was a process that eventually happened. It wasn't necessarily something that we planned, but anyhow, so it was kind of through a day of labor, and he was born just after 10 o'clock in the evening. And one of the things that was very important to me is I wanted to actually see him be born. The doctors and nurses allowed me to be there next to the doctor and just to see his little head pop out. And then the doctors did their thing, and he gave him a quarter turn, and boom, he popped out. And it was just the most amazing moment of my life. It was just, I was so curious to see what he would look like, from the sonograms and whatnot, and just seeing his little face. But as happy as I was, it was just for myself, it was just as joyful to see Andrea hold him on her chest and her tears of joy. And because one of the things too with our process is Andrea really still wanted the experience of being pregnant. And so the fact that she was able to carry Garrett was just very fulfilling for her.
Fred, while you and Andrea were obviously in this together as a couple dealing with the challenges, I would imagine that while you share some of the same emotions, it was a different experience being a man going through this than being a woman. Can you share your perspective on that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. There are definitely similar feelings that men and women go through, but some of the things unique to men are number one is that they stuff their feelings about it. That they tend to say, "Oh, it's more of my wife, my partner's issue, and it weighs more on her because she has a stronger maternal pull." When in reality, they're really hurting and just stuffing their feelings, and they don't know what to do with it. And then that leads to the second issue, and that is that most men really experience this in isolation and report to me a strong sense of loneliness, that they don't feel like that there's any of their guy friends who will understand. Lots of times even family members who are wanting and trying to be supportive. Really, if you haven't gone through it, you just don't know. And then the third thing is also that whenever a couple's infertility journey leads them down to a path of where they're needing to seek medical treatment, and that the female is going on infertility drugs and medications as a part of those procedures, lots of times those can wreak havoc on her hormones. And not for all women, but for many, they experience more moodiness and more mood swings and just a heightened emotional level. And guys struggle through how to best be able to deal with that, but also how to best support their partner during this time.
So now going back in time just a bit, Fred, to when Andrea was 5 months pregnant, and you decided to make a sort of big change with your practice to help men who were dealing with a difficult journey of infertility cope. This seems like sort of a natural transition for you.
Yeah, just given everything that I had gone through, I had always thought through my education and my training as a therapist that I wanted to be involved and help the infertility community in some way. But whenever you're going through infertility, those emotions are just so, raw, and just I didn't feel like I could do that until my own infertility journey had been resolved. One of the reasons also why I decided to do this is because through our own journey, even though my wife and I sought out the services of a counselor, that still kind of globally, the resources for men were almost non-existent. They were really focused more on the female, which I think is great. But there just weren't a lot of resources for men, and so I want to make a difference in that arena.
And I know, Fred, that offering hope to the men who come in to speak with you is one of the most important things that you are able to give them. And in an article that you wrote for Art of Infertility website last year, you said, and I'd like to read the quote, "It may not be the way to parenthood you envisioned, but there are paths that can take you there." And I'm sure it's important for people to know that it might not be what they expected, but there are other ways, and you, of all people, know that best. What advice can you give to men who might be watching right now who are going through this very difficult journey?
For a couple that really wants to be parents, there is hope. There are options. Not every option is the right one for every couple. So that's one of the things that I help with as well, is in making that decision process as their infertility journey continues. And the other big piece of advice I would give to men is you do not need to go at this alone. Sure, you're in it with your partner, but even within a partnership, couples don't always see things eye to eye. They're not always in the same place. So, you know, there are men out there, such as myself, who have been through this and who get it, who understand, and that you just really don't need to go through it alone. And it's okay to say, "Hey, this is difficult for me, and I need some help here." In fact, it's a position of strength. And so, for any man who's feeling that way, I would really encourage them to reach out and ask for some support from someone who knows what it's like to go down this road.
I know so many people work with women to cope, and that you're offering hope to men is really wonderful.
Thank you.
So great to have you with us today to share your story. And please tell anyone who's watching where they can find out more information about you.
My website, fredharlan.net.
And if you'd like more information about the doctors, the staff, and any of the treatments available at HRC Pasadena, please visit our website at hrcpasadena.com. Fred, thank you, and thank you all for watching today.
Thank you.